The Dukes of Hazzard won't be seen tonight, so we can bring you a very special episode of The Gen X Files. Peace in my life. Remember the call. Oh, tearful my brothers. Think of them all. Home of the free. We'll never fall. Strength for our nation belongs to us all. Welcome to the Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about Rambo First Blood Part 2.
If you couldn't figure that out from the amazing song.
Peace in my life. Oh man, Frank Stallone.
He was great.
He was liquid love, baby. That's what they used to call him. His voice, his tonsils were liquid love.
I will never get that image out of my mind.
Yep.
Frank Stallone is
liquid
liquid
love.
love.
Stallone. The other one was what? The big babu.
The big bab.
What was it?
Italian Stallion?
Yeah, the Italian Stallion.
Italian Stallion, yeah.
And it's weird that he was known throughout his career as the Italian Stallion, and just kind of like was like, all right, I was in it.
Yeah.
And that's who I am.
Yeah, he just owned it. I mean, that's Sylvester Stallone, man.
The most successful pornography star ever minted.
I would agree with that. We'll find out throughout the show here that he definitely has no shame whatsoever. All right, well, take yourself back to 1985.
Ooh.
Yeah, January 28th, the charity single record "We Are the World" is recorded by USA for Africa.
Yeah, man. We are the world.
Yeah, it had like 100 billion artists in it.
And there were like
so many.
Bono.
And Bono.
Michael Jackson. That was written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie.
Ooh.
Who loves dancing on the ceiling.
And, produced by Quincy Jones.
Yeah. Whose daughter is
Janet Jones?
Rashida Jones.
Oh, Rashida Jones. That's right.
Great actress.
You're right.
Great actor.
I always forget that is. Yeah, that's right. Quincy Jones. Yeah.
She hasn't done anything for a while, it seems.
I think
I miss her.
She was in something. Yeah, she's really good. Yeah. I am really kind of sad.
Doesn't need to work though. I mean, she's done her bit. If she wants to,
she's
stop.
Definitely made her money. Yeah. March 11th, 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev becomes General Secretary of the Soviet Communist Party and de facto leader of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and everybody just talked about that smear on his forehead, that birthmark.
His weird birthmark. I didn't say weird. It was just a birthmark. Yeah. April 23rd, Coca-Cola changes its formula and releases New Coke. The response is overwhelmingly negative, and the original formula is back on the market in less than 3 months.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how petrified Americans are of change. It was a negligible difference.
Yeah,
it didn't taste bad. It was just a mental thing because if Coke would have rolled out that recipe without even saying that it was a new Coke recipe, I guarantee you only about 2% of Coke drinkers would be like, this tastes odd.
It's weird. Yeah. The fact they call it New Coke is just weird.
I don't like new things.
Yeah. I don't know. To be honest, I haven't looked up anything about New Coke, so I don't know why it was different and why they decided to do this.
Just a small change to the recipe.
It kind of feels like it was a marketing thing, just so they could up the sales of Coke Classic, as they eventually called it.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It was a weird time, the 80s, man. A lot of weird risks.
A lot of people on cocaine. Rolling out New Coke.
What if we had New Coke? What if we needed New Coke? What are you talking about? Talking about Coca-Cola? Yeah. Yeah, it was New Coke was fueled by Old Coke, which was Classic Coke, which is cocaine.
Yeah. May 22nd, Rambo First Blood Part 2 is released into theaters.
Yeah.
So coming off of a successful first foray with First Blood, making a sizable profit and being well received by critics, could Rambo First Blood Part 2 repeat the same success?
I don't know. We'll have to stay tuned to find out. I remember seeing, I know we're going to do a First Blood show, but I just have to, man, I remember seeing it in the theater. I was alone in the theater because I was theater bouncing. Nobody was there for some reason.
Yeah.
And the rat scene came on.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's going through the tunnels and I was deathly afraid of rats.
No.
I literally climbed under the seat and hid until
that seems like
after that scene was open.
Bad place to hide from rats.
Well, I didn't want to see it. Like, seeing it was making me very uncomfortable as a young man.
Underneath the seat with you was a rat going, I'm scared of rats too, man.
Yeah, exactly. It was my buddy Ben.
So the first Rambo film, called First Blood, as you said, was based off a 1972 novel of the same name.
And a really good movie.
And it is a great movie. Definitely a very different movie from Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Well, here's the thing, and we're going to talk about this, but I see part 2 as the bridge between the grounded good movie that First Blood is and the ridiculous propaganda movie that Rambo 3 is. It is definitely a bridge because there's definitely some decent parts in 2.
The first hour of 2 is much more like the first movie, and then it just
it's just
insane.
Re-litigating the Vietnam War and letting everybody just relish in the fact that it's just person after person after. So he literally just wipes. It's genocide to Vietnamese people. That all of these movies. I don't think in the Rambo universe there's anybody left in Vietnam.
No, he's murdered everyone. Yeah. First Blood was released in October of 1982 and became Carolco Pictures' first huge success.
Oh, yeah. Carolco.
Carolco?
I think so. I mean, that's how I always pronounced it as a kid because I saw a lot of
it's definitely Carolco.
Carolco, but I always was like Carolco.
Carolco was founded by Mario Casar and Andrew Vajna, two film investors in 1976. The two were hailed by Newsweek as some of the most successful independent producers of all time.
Oh, yeah. Well, they followed the Corman.
Yeah, for sure.
The recipe.
By the age of 25, Vajna went from wig maker to the owner of 2 Hong Kong theaters.
Nice.
Then Vajna ventured into the production and distribution of feature films. One of his early productions was a 1973 martial arts film entitled The Deadly China Doll, which made $3.7 million off of a $100,000 budget.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good work. The Deadly China Doll starred Angela Mao and Carter Wong, who would later appear as Thunder in Big Trouble in Little China.
Like both of them?
No, just Carter Wong. Although Angela Mao was a huge, she had the long ponytail that she would use to whip people.
Oh, yeah.
Had the blade in the end. She was a big martial artist.
Nice.
Star.
The video game character Bayonetta, I believe, was based on.
Oh, yeah. That actually is right. Yeah, that sounds right. At the age of 15, Casar had purchased several Italian and French films for distribution in the Far East. At the age of 15.
Yeah, well, that means, did he have money? Did he come from money?
Apparently. I don't know what his... I mean,
even if he did, it's pretty impressive that at 15 you're a film distributor.
To have that kind of knowledge of like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
They bought the name Carolco from a defunct Panamanian company, and according to Casar...
It means nothing!
Yeah. The first film they invested in together was The Sicilian Cross in 1975, starring Roger Moore.
Oh.
They bought the rights to that film for $130,000, and then immediately Mario Casar flew to Asia and sold it for $220,000.
Well, yeah, it was perfect timing because somebody was taking over the Bond franchise.
Yes.
And he had already made a name for him in The Saint and...
Yeah, he was but it's just impressive to like literally within a week make a $90,000 profit. Like it's smart business acumen. For the rest of the 70s, Mario Casar and Andrew Vajna mainly invested in and produced low-budget films, knowing they could sell them on the international market for a profit. They first met Sylvester Stallone while producing the 1981 film Escape to Victory, the World War II POW soccer movie, also starring Max von Sydow.
Michael Caine.
Max von Sydow, Michael Caine, and Pele.
It's a good movie. That was one of those movies that played on HBO.
All the time.
Time. All of it. It's the best of Stallone's got this dumb guy and they made him the goalie. I can stop him with my face.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It is. It's a good movie.
Yes.
It ages better with time because of the actors, but,
So this led them to investing in First Blood, which became Carolco's biggest hit. In 1983, Carolco sold foreign distribution rights for First Blood to distributors in Europe and Japan. They used the idea of a sequel to help sell First Blood. So essentially they would say, buy this movie, we're guaranteeing you another movie in 18 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they did a lot of tricks that are used today, using foreign sales to basically bankroll your movie. Doing the pre-sales, sell off your movie before it's even made.
Yeah, the international film sales agency I worked for, literally that was the way they did every single movie they invested in.
Yeah.
Was they always sold the Asian and the European rights first. You would package more movies together to give higher sale numbers, regardless if sequels would actually be sold or not. They initially scheduled the film for a December 1984 release, despite the fact that there were no plans yet for a second movie. Eventually, it was rescheduled for August 1st, 1985. To give them a little more time.
Well, they didn't use it.
Carolco turned back to Buzz Feitshans, who had produced First Blood. And also
Is he an astronaut?
the greatest name ever. I don't know. He might have been in space a little bit. Buzz had a string of hits working with John Milius.
There's really only two types of people that have the nickname Buzz.
Yeah.
One's an astronaut, and the other's an alcoholic.
I'm going to go ahead and say he falls in the latter in this one, probably. He also produced Conan the Barbarian, which was released just 6 days before Rambo First Blood Part 2 in 1995.
Nice. The two big musclitoed buddies all going up against each other.
He was a very busy Buzz. Sorry,
Yes.
that was really bad.
Busy Buzz.
Busy Buzz. So the producers turned to young writer Kevin Jarre. Jarre is the son of actor Laura Devon and her second husband Cleland Clark, a fashion photographer. Devon had a TV career in the 1960s, appearing in shows like the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, The Twilight Zone, and Rawhide. Kevin was adopted by Devon's fourth husband, French composer Maurice Jarre, shortly after they were married.
Maurice Jarre.
Yeah.
He's one of the greats.
Yeah, he was fantastic. In England, while Maurice was scoring the film Ryan's Daughter, Kevin became a friend of writer-director David Lean, who encouraged him to take up screenwriting and directing.
Interesting.
Kevin was 16 at the time, and it's like, yeah, this is my buddy David. He just makes some movies. It's cool.
Crazy.
Yeah. Kevin had written a story treatment that the producers and Stallone really liked, so they had a meeting with Kevin. He recalled,
I wrote the first draft of Rambo, and I just did it. I was living on dog food at the time, and I, needed a gig. And I wanted to finish the spec script I was writing. And, Stallone called me, and they had this idea about what they should do in the sequel to The First Blood. And I said, well, how about if maybe he searches for POWs in Southeast Asia, maybe back in Vietnam? He said, great, let's do it.
yeah. That was pretty much it. So for the people that are listening that aren't aware of just how big the POW MIA whole Vietnam era
Well, look, there was a
fiasco, crisis, whatever you want to call it.
Vietnam is not a very good example of American history.
No.
It was a mess. There were a lot of horrible things done there, and the veterans were treated horribly when they returned.
Yeah.
It was the first time that any veteran had returned from, quote unquote, losing a war, and all of the atrocities, they were blaming everybody. So these guys never got their due.
Right.
They thought there were people left behind. And so there was kind of this collective guilt in the 80s about how everything was handled back then.
Yes.
And so we basically relitigated Vietnam through these movies and TV shows, and it was a lot of wish fulfillment.
Yeah,
And
there was a definite concerted effort to
look for redemption, some
Yeah.
sort of redemption arcs for this horrible time in our history.
Yeah. So Operation Homecoming in 1973 saw the government make a concerted effort to get U.S. POWs out of Vietnam. It resulted in 591 POWs coming home, but it just whet the appetite of the U.S. public about their treatment and the potential for POWs that were still there. Even after the U.S. exit from Vietnam in 1975, there were an estimated 1,350 POWs and the remains of 1,200 MIA soldiers still in Vietnam.
Well, yeah.
Which is crazy to me. I mean, yeah.
Well, it was it wasn't. It was a messy war, man.
I know.
And it was,
I know.
It was hard to reclaim the bodies. There was a lot of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
The remains I understand, because it's like, well, it's hard to go back and just get this stuff, so they can have proper burials. But they literally left 1,300 people behind.
Yeah.
They had no idea if they were alive or not. You can assume they were alive. Like, that just seems really, really shitty.
Again, it was not. It was not a good time.
No, it
in our history, and it was a flawed. And this is no disrespect to the veterans who served, because they're heroes, except for the ones that did the horrible atrocities.
There were definitely some that did.
The
bad
majorities
things,
of
but,
the people that served heroically and dutifully, but they were in a losing situation. They were in a war they never needed to be in. This was just another boogeyman communist proxy war for Russia that we kept doing. So,
I mean, I would argue that 99% of the soldiers there did not want to be there.
No.
They were drafted.
Yes.
They didn't sign up for this. They just got sent there and
No.
said, shoot these guys,
Yeah.
and then go home and deal with the fact that you're going to be ridiculed for the rest of your life.
Yes, and it also was it was the first war too where there was no real uniform for the other side. You
Yeah.
didn't know. You
Yeah.
would go into a village and you didn't know who was with the Viet Cong and who was against the Viet Cong,
Right.
and which people were on your side and which people were against your side. And it was a whole different way of fighting and a whole different way of psychological warfare against
Yeah.
these soldiers. So, and it was also the first war to really have drugs be
Yeah.
a huge part of what's going on, be it heroin, LSD, pot, whatever.
Yeah,
There was
yeah.
a lot of drug use because, like you said, nobody wanted to be there.
Yeah.
So they're escaping as much
Had
as
to-
they
yeah,
can.
yeah.
You know, so it's such a complicated part of our history. And what do when history is complicated? We try to make it super easy and palatable.
We make really bad movies
Yes, we
to
make
make it
propaganda films.
seem like it's better than it was.
Exactly. We change history and make everything better with our wish fulfillments.
So a vocal group of POW MIA activists maintains that there has been a concerted conspiracy by the Vietnamese and U.S. government since then to hide the existence of these left behind prisoners.
Yeah.
The U.S. government has steadfastly denied that prisoners were left behind or that any effort has been made to cover up their existence. It had a huge impact on popular culture, with characters getting POW backstories in TV and film, such as Magnum and Magnum PI.
Yeah, there was a whole, big Magnum storyline
Yeah,
about
yeah.
bringing back POWs.
Yeah.
And, he was a POW himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they brought back, there was a whole, Manchurian Candidate thing. And it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
again, one of the best shows in the world, Magnum PI, but it did a lot of relitigating of the Vietnam
Yeah,
War,
yeah, yeah.
Because it was the 80s. It was those were the dads now. Those were the middle-aged
Right,
guys
right,
in the
right.
80s was, the guys that would serve their time.
Well, and it's like I think a lot of it is that those guys didn't want to think that they wasted 6 years of their lives doing this crap.
And let's be honest, too, the rah Reagan years were
Yeah.
very,
huge part of it,
pro
yeah.
propaganda, America, rah.
Yeah.
Good or bad, but
America
it's,
up, yeah.
exactly. The whole point of this damn thing is Reagan's rah 80s.
Several congressional investigators have looked into the issue, culminating with the largest and most thorough, the United States Senate Select Committee on POW MIA Affairs of 1991 to 1993, led by Senators John Kerry, Bob Smith, and John McCain, all three of whom served in Vietnam and one of whom had been a POW. It found
No compelling evidence that proves that any American remains alive in captivity in Southeast Asia. And I trust those guys, especially McCain, because he was a prisoner of
yeah.
war. That guy was so...
if they had been there, he would have found them.
Right, but, say what you want about McCain and his politics or whatever, but he was such an advocate for veterans
Yes,
and
yes.
for disabled... because that guy gave his body.
Yeah.
He was a prisoner. He couldn't lift his arms because of
Yeah.
the torture that he went through, that guy. He was a war hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he deserved a lot better at the end.
He did. He definitely did. So that's the background with our POW MIA affairs.
Hopefully the end of my soapboxing.
It's not. I mean, it's a huge. You have to understand this part of it to understand Rambo: First Blood Part 2.
And going
and
through
why,
it, living through it,
Yeah.
there was the stages, man, because it started with the rah wish fulfillment and rewriting of history.
Right.
And then certain filmmakers who lived through it, like Oliver Stone, who was
Yeah.
a veteran himself, was like, no,
No,
this is what happened.
Right.
And then we got the other side, which was all of the real gritty,
Platoon and,
Yeah,
and all
and
the
the-
actual look at what happened to
with
these
Michael J.
soldiers.
Fox. Oh, I'm not
Casualties
gonna
of
happen
war.
here, Sarge.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot. Oh, and Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah. Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick. All the guys started telling the real story of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And, so there was kind of a clash between these pseudo-propaganda films and then these, pseudo-realistic films.
Yeah. I would argue that stuff like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket would not exist if it wasn't for things like Rambo: First Blood Part 2.
Oh, 100%.
And that faction of people going, it was not happy, shiny, let's
Right.
go save people. It was awful.
Yeah.
And-
Well, you couldn't. Look, all the World War II movies were propaganda, but they were great, and even the ones that came after it,
yeah.
there weren't a lot of bad stories told because we basically were fighting the supreme evil,
Right,
Hitler,
right. Yeah.
the fascists.
I mean, they were universally bad.
right. There were. It's countless movies with Nazis being the villains.
Yes.
Beyond, before, and after World War II.
Yes.
Even.
Yes.
You know, I think they probably even throw some Nazis into some of these Vietnam movies. You know, it's like, oh, here's. But you know, I get it. I get this kind of backlash to know this was our experience. And the thing about these Vietnam films that came out, they weren't necessarily condemning the veterans.
Right.
They were explaining why the veterans went through what they did,
Yeah,
and why they were
yeah.
taking the drugs, and why everything was so horrible, and the
Right.
hell that they were living through. Apocalypse Now,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
Yeah.
Platoon. These movies were brutal,
Yeah.
and it didn't at all glorify or make war something that, you know,
Yeah.
that anybody would be a part of. And I think that's part of what drove these guys to make these answers to Rambo and Missing in Action and all
yeah.
these wish fulfillment movies. Is like, we don't want you guys to use the false narrative of Vietnam to get kids to join the armed forces.
Right. Right.
And, you know, and go under false pretenses.
Right,
So it
right,
was really interesting, man.
Yeah,
it was a really interesting time.
Yeah, exactly. So the producers of Rambo First Blood Part 2 decided that Rambo needed a sidekick to go save all those POWs still captured in Vietnam.
Yeah, see, I'm your sidekick. What are we gonna do, Rambo? Where are we gonna go? Hey, when do I get a machine gun, Rambo?
You shut up, man. I was just trying to do my thing.
Well, okay, Rambo. Whatever you say, Rambo. Okay.
The producers actually wanted John Travolta to play the sidekick,
Hey, Rambo.
but Stallone nixed the idea.
Yeah, it'd be too confusing with.
Well, they had just worked together on Staying Alive.
Yeah.
So it was
I get why they're not working together, because that POS was awful, and it has the greatest cameo. Stallone did his Hitchcock cameo.
Oh, yeah.
It's my favorite director's cameo. It's of any movie ever. So John Travolta, poor son of a bitch that had to go through this awful, awful, awful sequel. He's walking down the street and bumps into Stallone, who's wearing this big old white fur coat and
Oh, yeah.
sunglasses.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like to his back, looks at him, and it was just like, F you. F you.
So Kevin Jarre wrote a treatment for after the meeting that he had with Stallone and the producers. The producers actually hired James Cameron to write a first draft screenplay from Kevin's treatment.
Nice. This right when Cameron was becoming a darling. This was like his renaissance.
He was writing The Terminator and Aliens at the same time.
Crazy.
It would be such a great time for him.
Well, just like two amazing films.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Cameron's first draft was titled First Blood 2, The Mission. According to Cameron, his script had the same basic structure of the first film, but was more violent than its predecessor.
It was quite a different film from First Blood. Apart from the continuation of the Rambo character, the first one was set in a small town and had a different social consciousness from the second one, which was a very broad, stylized adventure. It was a little more violent in its execution than I had in mind in the writing.
Following Cameron's initial drafts,
How did you get him actually saying that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
was from a
I called him
documentary.
up. We hang out once in a while.
You guys are pretty close.
Following Cameron's initial drafts, Stallone would take over script writing duties, creating a final draft which differed from previous versions. Kevin Jarre would actually receive sole story credit, while Stallone and Cameron would get credited for the screenplay in the final film.
Good for him.
Yeah. Kevin Jarre, he ended up having a pretty good career.
Yeah?
Yeah, a pretty decent career. And then unfortunately, he had some heart disease and died when he was like 40.
No.
Yeah. Stallone later recalled,
I think that James Cameron is a brilliant talent, but I thought the politics were important. Such as a right-wing stance coming from Troutman and his nemesis Murdoch, contrasted by Rambo's obvious neutrality, which I believe is explained in Rambo's final speech. I realize his speech is the unmade caused millions of viewers to bust veins in their eyeballs by rolling them excessively. But the sentiment stated was conveyed to me by many veterans.
don't forget that Stallone had been nominated for an Oscar, a BAFTA, and a Golden Globe for his screenplay for Rocky. So while
Deservedly so.
he's not the brightest bulb in the box,
Yeah.
he definitely has experience and knows what he's talking about.
One of my first stand-up jokes as a young 16-year-old was, Sylvester Stallone wrote all of his own dialogue for Rambo. And they'd be like, And that was the only laugh I got at my first album.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
So Stallone went on to say,
In his original draft, it took nearly 30 to 40 pages to have early action initiated, and Rambo was partnered with a techie sidekick, so it was more than just politics that were put into the script. There was also a simpler storyline. If James Cameron says anything more than that, then he realizes he's now doing the backstroke bandy in a pool of lies.
"Oh, okay."
Ooh, he was very passionate about that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Stallone thinks he's a better writer than James Cameron.
I think Stallone thinks he's a better everything than everybody, but you know why? Because he's got the little guy complex. He's like 5 foot and nothing.
Yeah, he's a tiny man.
You don't say that. I'm big in stature.
So Stallone, obviously playing John James Rambo, he was a household name because of Rocky and Rocky II by this point.
Oh, I loved him.
Yeah. After the release of Rocky, Roger Ebert stated that Stallone could become the next Marlon Brando.
Okay, calm down. Calm down.
Stallone co-wrote the scripts for all of the Rambo movies. He also was becoming a prolific director by this point, having directed Paradise Alley in 1978.
Decent.
It was about three brothers in the 40s who become professional wrestlers.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Rocky II in 1979.
Not bad.
Rocky III in 1982.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, Rocky III is a great movie. And Staying Alive in 1983, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever. He had directed all of these. Like, it's impressive, like, how you think about Stallone, you think about how dumb he is.
Yeah.
But he has had an amazing career.
He's not dumb at all. He had a stroke working out.
And now his mouth is dead.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's not a very good actor. And he
What
was
do you
when he
mean?
began.
He's the next Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Okay. He has dead eyes, man. And he could have been Rambrando.
Yeah.
He could have been Brando if he didn't just become a human action figure and turn his body into this thing. The way he moves in Rambo is like somebody jacked a broomstick all the way up from his asshole to his skull and then jammed something into his shoulders and the guy just moves around, you know.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's so unnatural. And it's just the thing I always say, you know, the more you concentrate on your body, the less you're, you know.
Brain?
Yes. Because I've been really concentrating on my
Have you
body.
been working out too much today?
Yeah, I worked out today, so I got no. But you know what I mean? It's like very few actors can balance that, you know. And he and Schwarzenegger were kind of the first body actors with these ridiculously unattainable bodies that started body dysmorphia for men my age. But, you know, I think... And then finally he goes back on Copland, gains 30 pounds, and is like, I'm going to be an actor. And then he's got dead eyes. He's got dead eyes. There's nothing going on in those eyes.
Yeah.
And that's where acting is in your eyes. You can do
As many accents, gain as much weight as you want.
but if your eyes are dead, your performance is dead. By then, I think the passion was gone.
I would argue that Schwarzenegger's a better actor than Stallone.
He has more fun, and he's less calculated. I think Stallone, being a control freak, and I think because he's a little guy, I think Stallone has insecurity of being a little guy and overcompensates, and that's why he does a lot of crap.
Right.
I think Arnold 100% knows who he is.
Yes.
Knows what he's good at, and controls what he needs to control, and doesn't give an F about anything else, and has a blast.
Yeah,
and I think that's the difference between the two dudes.
I think Schwarzenegger's a lot more fun to watch.
Yeah, 100% too. And he's doing things still that are fun to watch or different. Like I watched that zombie movie, Maggie or something.
I think
something like that.
Yeah.
But it was you know, he's always going to be Arnold.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. He knows that. He knows he can't.
But
I don't narrow range.
I don't think Stallone thinks he's always Stallone. And there's a lot of missteps to prove that, like Rhinestone and, you know,
and they call him Frankenstein.
That's the song that he sings
right.
in the musical. And I actually did it more in key.
Wasn't he the mama? Did the mama one? Was that him? No.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop
yeah.
him, my mama shoot.
Stop or my mom will shoot.
So he tried all this stuff, but he just wasn't
Yeah.
game enough. He couldn't.
There was the gangster one he did. Was that wasn't Rhinestone, was it?
No. The gangster. You mean the one with his daughter or whatever?
I think so.
Oscar?
Oscar,
Yeah.
that's what it was. Yeah.
Look, he tried, and in Tango and Cash, really tried to talk really fast. All right, Tango. It's like they split
I
the
love
characters.
Tango and
I
Cash.
love that movie, 100%. And look, I love Sylvester Stallone.
I will admit, Tango and Cash is the only time I forget it's Stallone.
Yes, because he talks. He's trying to be the real smart guy. All right, Tango.
He's like,
I'm going to talk really fast.
it was they switched the parts. He should
Yeah.
have definitely been.
Yes, agreed.
I don't remember which was which. I think he was Cash, and
The other one's Tango.
I don't know. I don't
But-
remember.
look, man, as silly as he is, or whatever, as cartoony as he is, he's still super fun, and he ruled the '80s, man. I still will watch crappy movies. Look, Tango and Cash is not a crappy movie. Tango and Cash is one of those iconic movies of when it was made that is so 80. It's so of its time.
It's perfect for
that
its
it should
time,
be in a
yeah.
time capsule and taught in history classes of what that era was like.
Right.
But yeah, I still love the guy. He still is a great movie maker.
Do you think that a lot of the roles he takes and all that is because he had a chip on his shoulder that he didn't win the Oscar for Rocky?
I think after he didn't win the Oscar for Rocky,
Because I mean, he literally passed on when he was selling the script for Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
He passed on a much higher figure for it so he could act in it.
of course, because he knew that was his ticket.
Right, but I mean, I honestly think that for Rocky, and maybe this is a conversation for a Rocky
Sure.
episode, but like, I really think that he was so mad that he didn't win for acting that it defined the rest of his career.
Possibly, I think he tried. I think
Yeah.
I think the subsequent movies were still good movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and not that but I think once he hit Rambo and these iconic characters, and then made Rocky more cartoony,
Yeah.
when he realized that he could be the face of propaganda and patriotism in America, he jumped on that.
Yeah.
Tied that red band around his head and was like, "Hey, here I am."
Give me some more baby oil.
Of course, because it's why wouldn't you? I mean, he knew.
No, it made money. Yeah, at the end of
And
the day.
he, it's like you get sick of people telling you you're an idiot and telling him and all this crap. The guy's an art collector. The guy's not a fool.
No. He's not dumb by any means.
No, but he just is who he is, and he's always there's no way around him. He's The Rock. He's Arnold.
Yeah.
He's all these guys. Kevin Hart. There's
Yeah.
all these guys
Yeah.
that can never get away from who they are because their personalities are so huge,
They are that character. Yeah.
and they don't really have a lot of range.
Very narrow range. Yes. So they cast.
Although let me say something nice.
sorry.
I'm sorry. One thing I think because Rocky is an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And an amazing feat of independent filmmaking.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he deserves every accolade for that. And I think if he went hungry still, he could have maybe been another Brando. Working with the
Yeah.
right directors,
Yeah.
getting rid of the control, and not I think if he zigged instead of zagged, but I think by the time all the money and everything was come to him, his soul was out of it, and he just was like,
Yeah.
All right, let me work out and say the lines.
Yeah. Agreed. So Richard Crenna was playing Colonel Sam Troutman.
love Richard Crenna.
Richard Crenna is fantastic. He starred in such motion pictures as The Sand Pebbles, a 1966 war epic.
Voice.
Wait Until Dark, a 1967 psychological thriller.
Yep.
Un Flic, a 1972 French crime film. Body Heat, a 1981 neo-noir erotic crime thriller directed by Lawrence Kasdan.
Great movie.
Fantastic movie. And The Flamingo Kid in 1984, directed by Gary Marshall.
He was trained to kill.
Richard Crenna started on radio dramas in the 40s, moved to TV in the 50s, and directed a bunch of TV stuff in the 60s.
Yeah, well, everybody did everything back then because
Yeah,
it was just kind of it was like a band of theater weirdos that just kind of did stuff.
It was a small tent, and they just kept
Exactly.
pulling in other people. Like, oh, you act in this, okay. In 1985, Richard Crenna actually won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited or Anthology Series or Movie for his portrayal of the title role in The Rape of Richard Beck, also known as Deadly Justice. Just a short synopsis, because I thought this was interesting the way it was written. Richard Beck is a police detective who believes that rape victims are quote-unquote asking for it until he is raped by 2 male suspects, and then he comes to question his beliefs.
All right, wait a minute. I know I said they were asking for it. But now that it's happened to me, and I don't remember asking for it. I mean, I was a little drunk, but I don't remember. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe.
He won an Emmy for that.
Well, it's a
It's a great movie. I mean,
edgy role,
yeah,
and
yeah.
at the time, man, that's not something that anybody talked about. 85.
I just love the fact that the synopsis leads it to believe that he could still go, no, they're still asking for it.
Yeah. Well, I was wearing some pretty short shorts.
Wearing my Speedo underwears, and they just couldn't help themselves. Yeah, anyway. Charles Napier as Major Marshal Roger T. Murdoch.
One of my favorite character actors.
He's so phenomenal. Has the greatest smile ever.
Got a great gravelly voice, too.
He was frequently cast as police officers, soldiers, or authority figures, many of which were villains.
He had that voice, and I think he had that accent, too.
He just seethes being a bad guy. Like, it's really great.
Or a man of authority.
Yeah. He's always. He made numerous collaborations with director Jonathan Demme, including Something Wild in 1986 with Melanie Griffith, Jeff Daniels, and Ray Liotta.
Oh, Ray Liotta.
Yeah. Married to the Mob in 1988 with Michelle Pfeiffer, Matthew Modine, Dean Stockwell, Mercedes Ruehl, and Alec Baldwin.
Oh, Dean Stockwell.
Yeah. The Silence of the Lambs in 1991 with Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, he had his face ripped off.
Anthony Hopkins. Oh, no, I'm just
What?
kidding. I'm kidding.
Don't even joke, man.
I'm kidding. It was obviously Jonathan Demme's most famous movie.
You got yourself a second meal, Doc. And that's
so great.
That meal's going to be your face.
Philadelphia in 1993 with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington.
He was the judge, right?
Yeah. Beloved in 1998 with Oprah, Danny Glover, and Tandy Newton. And The Manchurian Candidate in 2004, the remake with Denzel Washington.
Yeah, he was also a voice in The Critic.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
He was, later on, he did a lot of voiceover work as he got older.
He was so good. He was my favorite part of The Critic because he played the owner of the TV station.
Yeah,
and he was just a nut. And he always in animation played like the nuttiest characters. I think he loved it because he, like you said, he had to play all these very stern, except for like Austin Powers and some of the funny stuff that he got because people absolutely adored him and wanted to put him in every movie.
Right.
But I think he got to have a lot of fun with his voiceover stuff. Yeah. And it really showed because some of his things are as wacky can be.
Like when he played the short-tempered country singer Tucker McElroy in The Blues Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
So great. I always forget he's in it, and then as soon as I think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, he's so fantastic in that movie. And in Austin Powers. Like, he had a fantastic career.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just such fun to watch.
One of those guys that as soon as you see him, you know who he is.
Yeah.
You know?
Fantastic. Stephen Burkoff as Lieutenant Colonel Sergei T. Podovsky. Burkoff is a British actor, author, playwright, and theater director. His theater work is recognized for being staged with a heightened performance style, eponymously known as Burkovian theater, which combines elements of physical theater, total theater, and expressionism. His work has sometimes been viewed as an example of in-your-face theater due to the intense presentation and taboo-breaking material in a number of his plays.
Sounds familiar.
That's why I put it in. Sounds very much like the theater that Jim and I met at.
Yeah.
On screen, he is known for his performances in villainous roles, including the portrayals of General Orlov in the James Bond film Octopussy in 1983.
I'm going to kill you, Mr. Bond.
Victor Maitland in Beverly Hills Cop in 1984.
Now that would be a neat trick.
And Adolf Hitler in the TV miniseries War and Remembrance, which ran between 88 and 89.
Hey, I don't like others.
Good. Stephen Burkoff is amazing. He's a great
I love
actor.
him. He never got that giant lump
and he still has that lump
in the middle of his forehead. I wonder if any time, like when they were on the set and they were running the coverage of the other actor, and the director's like, just focus on the lump. Where's my eye line?
Right,
the lump.
Right there.
The lump is a good eye line.
Julian Nixon.
God rest his soul.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know. Is he dead?
No, I don't think so. I think he's still alive.
Then, hail and hearty. Keep it going, buddy. Sorry about teasing you for your lump. Great career.
Yeah,
Wonderful
he's
actor.
he's a great actor.
And a theater,
He's a theater guy. I always got to give a shout out to the theater guys.
Of course, man. Especially guys that are doing experimental and different kinds of theater and trying to expand people's consciousness.
Well, and the fact that he was doing this weird theater stuff, yet still had a really great career. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's awesome. That's the dream.
Must have been a weirdo to be around. Hey, you want to come to my play?
Being around the people we know at our weird theater, I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
It's only $15 a performance.
Do you want
I need to bring 10 actors to each performance, so I would really appreciate it if Mr. Judge Reinhold, and maybe you, Mr. Murphy, could come to my play?
Julia Nixon as Agent Ko Fwang Bao.
Nice.
While attending the University of Hawaii, Nixon was a model in Honolulu. There she appeared in her first play, The Winter's Tale, a Shakespearean part.
Nice.
After acting classes, community theater, and roles on Magnum P.I., she won the female lead in Rambo First Blood Part 2, her big screen acting debut.
Congratulations on your big screen acting debut.
She appeared with Chuck Norris in Sidekicks in 1992.
Yes, I wanted to get her for my rip-off of the Rambo, the thing in action, but I couldn't get her until
There's
that movie.
lot of connections to Chuck Norris in this cast.
Chucky baby, always chasing Stallone.
Yeah. She also appeared in Star Trek The Next Generation and in Deep Space Nine as two different characters.
Nice.
She appeared in the first season of Babylon 5.
Got some sci-fi cred.
Yeah. She did a lot of TV stuff after the movies. She had a recurring role on the television series Walker, Texas Ranger, reuniting her with Chuck Norris.
Yeah, they had to get her big.
Nixon was married to actor-singer David Soul from 1987 to 1983.
Yeah, from Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah.
He's Hutch.
He's great. Yeah, he was fantastic.
Greatest love story ever was between Starsky and Hutch.
They had one daughter together named China Soul, who was also a singer-songwriter. I just thought the name was fantastic.
Yeah.
She was a practicing Scientologist, having joined the church in 1996. Ooh. She credited the organization with helping to improve her health, and in 2008, she finally left the church entirely.
Yeah.
Martin Kove is Michael Reed Erickson, perhaps best known for playing John Kreese, the evil sensei in The Karate Kid in 1984 and its two sequels.
Sweep the leg. What? You heard me. Sweep the leg.
He also has been reprising the role in Cobra Kai since 2018.
God, he looks good. He looks like a bulldog.
Yeah. I mean, considering the guy's in his early 70s.
He looks amazing.
He is in incredible shape.
Yeah. I mean, look, guy could kick my ass.
Well, he's been doing martial arts since he was like 12. So I mean,
well, it shows.
Yeah. Always in. Take care of yourself.
It's cool to see him back, too. He's another character actor I always liked.
Yeah, he was great. Before Rambo First Blood Part 2, he appeared as Nero the Hero in Death Race 2000 in 1975.
Yep.
I love that movie so much.
Oh, yeah.
He was a regular on the TV series Cagney and Lacey from 1982 to 88.
Hey, Victor Isbecki.
Yeah, Victor Isbecki, the police detective, finally not playing a bad guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, he wasn't always on board with two lady cops. Old Isbecki.
Kove is the father of twins born in 1990, one of whom, Jesse, portrayed the young man who bullies the younger version of his father's character, John Kreese, in flashbacks for Season 3 and 4 of Cobra Kai.
Oh, what a dream come true.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have loved to play a part where I got to bully my dad. My stepdad.
That would be incredible.
He was just probably like, oh, baby.
Yeah. George Chung is Lieutenant Tay. Chung is a Hong Kong actor and stuntman with an extensive career in American television and film dating back to 1975.
Another actor, as soon as you see him, you know exactly who he is because he's been in everything.
He played a lot of Asian parts, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, Mongolian, like essentially, which is a little racist.
It's super.
They just
I mean,
threw him in as Asian.
Well, it was like Italian guys playing Native Americans.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't a lot of thought about a cultural appropriation and things like that back then.
Chung's career focused primarily on television work, though he has had numerous supporting roles in films such as RoboCop 2, Under Siege, and Fist of the North Star, in addition to Rambo First Blood Part 2. His television work includes
The Bionic Woman, Wonder Woman, MASH, Magnum P.I., T.J. Hooker, MacGyver, Knight Rider, Kung Fu, The Legend Continues, and Walker, Texas Ranger.
Along with 100 other things that we couldn't list.
Yeah.
He also has had a pretty good career in video games, such as
Halo 2, The Matrix, The Path of Neo, Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, and Grand Theft Auto 5. Who is he in Grand Theft Auto 5?
Wei Chung.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was. He's had a really great career.
I'm replaying that now. I'm gonna have to.
You'll have to
look
watch
out
for him. Yeah. So before filming started, Stallone went through intensive training to build the perfect musculature, which is where he had his stroke, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
caused his lip is always kind of permanently
paralyzed half of his face.
Yeah,
Because he worked out like an idiot.
he worked out super hard and unnecessarily. I mean,
Nobody knew how to do that then. It was still nobody.
Yeah.
If you look back at George Reeves and all the big bodybuilders at the time, they didn't have 8-packs and
No,
they didn't have
no.
0% body fat. They were just big guys with muscles. And this was the first time that he stripped away every ounce of fat. And it is not healthy.
No.
Your body needs a certain amount of fat and a certain amount of, it's not good. When I was super skinny, it didn't feel great. Your
Right.
organs, I don't know. It's just.
well, that's what Hugh Jackman always says. That it's part of the reason he stopped playing Wolverine, because he was like, having to get to the point where I have muscles the way I do, like it's awful.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
It is all consuming. Your entire life is consumed by when you eat, when you work out, what you do.
He works out like 8 hours a day, and all he eats is boiled chicken and broccoli, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just, he's like, I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
too much. And, well, not to mention the fact that now he's in his early 50s.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot harder to do. But
Tell me about it.
but it's just unhealthy. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not healthy. And to be honest, I think it's unnecessary. But
Of course. I don't think it's necessary either. I think I don't know, when we switched to the skinny is better, because
Yeah.
it wasn't like that. Marilyn
No.
Monroe certainly wasn't a skinny lady. And
she had an hourglass.
And, all the old actors pulled their pants up to their nips to cover their bellies.
Yeah.
There were slim guys with muscles, but it wasn't,
Everybody was pretty wafy. Yeah.
And like I said, he's walks around in that movie like he's got a damn stick up his butt.
Yeah. And it does. It looks like his muscles are too tight. The skin's too
Yes.
tight, and he just is
He
uncomfortable.
it's like every scene looks as if he just did 1,000 push-ups. Ready to go.
I'm sure he
And
probably
he's
did.
like, he's just sitting there. His expression is the same because he's just clenching his stupid veiny muscles.
So it's just weird.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely took advantage of it.
It changed society, man.
Yeah.
That he and Arnold changed the way men are.
But here's the thing, and I don't want to lump Schwarzenegger in with Stallone that way, because Schwarzenegger always did it healthy.
Sure. And then he was a bodybuilder.
He was a bodybuilder. Like, he knew what he was doing. And it's people like Stallone that go, no, I got to look just like that.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to do it properly, and they would almost kill themselves.
Well, there's just tons of supplements and tons of this and tons of that. And once you get into protein powders and creatine and all this stuff that you need to take, it's just, what are you doing? What am I putting in my body? And what is the point of all
Why?
this?
Yeah, why?
It's,
Do you feel better?
right.
It's like,
There's no reason he couldn't have had a shirt on and shot everybody, It's like he didn't need to be an action figure, and I think that's what it is. It was
Of course.
turning
He was-
these guys into action figures or video game protagonists, and it's
well,
just
the poster for Rambo First Blood Part 2 was one of the largest selling posters of all time.
yeah.
Because dudes wanted to throw it in their garage and have it's like, look, there he is with the big gun, and that's what I want to be.
There's my inspiration, and ladies
Yeah.
were like, "That's my inspiration."
The film was shot between June and August 1984. It was shot on location in the state of Guerrero, Mexico, and Thailand. During filming, special effects man Clifford P. Wenger Jr. was accidentally killed by one of the film's explosions.
Oh no!
That sucks. Unusual for the time, a teaser trailer for the film, then titled First Blood Part 2 The Mission, which was Cameron's title for the script, was released in 3,000 theaters in the summer of 1984, right as the film started production, several months before any footage of the film was completed.
Yeah, and then after that, it's all we get.
Yeah.
Coming in
That was it,
2027.
It was literally just to capitalize on the popularity of the first film.
Yep.
Carol Coe was all over it, and rightfully so, because the movie made a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things of this movie have resonated throughout the rest of time.
Yeah.
The overbuilding of your body, the marketing, the beautiful song that we all sing every 4th of July by Frank Stallone.
So, although the film was rated R and directed at adults, tie-in toys were created for it. A lot of toys. You had one of the Stallone, the Rambo toys.
Yeah, but I bought it as a joke at like a gas station
That's
to put in
true,
my car. I wasn't playing Rambo.
You weren't playing Rambo toys.
No,
when you were
because when
17.
Rambo 2 came out, I was like 15 or 16. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Right. You were buying it ironically.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I really dug Stallone back then still. He was,
I mean, I get it.
I ran to the Rocky 3 soundtrack. I wore out 2 tapes of that on the Walkman.
Nice. The musical score was composed by Jerry Goldsmith, conducting the National Philharmonic Orchestra, although Goldsmith relied heavily on electronic synthesized elements in the film score. Goldsmith had won an Oscar for his score for The Omen in 1977.
Nice.
He's been nominated 18 times for Best Score by the Academy. Other notable works of Goldsmith's include The Sand Pebbles in 1966, starring Richard Crenna.
I was in that.
Planet of the Apes in 1968, which is one of my favorite scores of all time. Patton in 1970.
George C. Scott is Patton.
Chinatown in 1974.
It's Chinatown, Jake.
The Boys from Brazil in 1978.
Look at all the little baby Hitlers.
And Star Trek the Motion Picture in 1979.
Feature.
And that was,
You betcha did.
That was only a small amount of the movies that he's been working on. He'd just come off scoring 3 films in 1984, including Gremlins, Supergirl, and Runaway.
Nice.
Yeah, which again, Gremlins, one of my favorite scores of all time.
Yeah.
And I just had to include Runaway because I love that movie so much.
Oh yeah.
With Magnum and Tom Selleck.
Yeah, Tom Selleck in a futuristic battling Gene Simmons of the Kiss. I'm Gene Simmons of Kiss, and I'm going to get you.
It was
Magnum P.I.
one of the only movies that Michael Crichton directed. I love that movie. Well, eventually we're going to do it.
There's a reason why it was one of the only movies that Michael Crichton directed.
Because it was so good. How can you do better than perfection?
Yeah. But didn't he also direct the...
He did.
The adaptation of the Andromeda Strain, the TV movie?
I think so. He had directed a bunch of other stuff. It was the last thing that he had directed. I think he got out of that.
Way to go out strong, buddy.
He scored... Goldsmith scored 4 other films in 1985, along with Rambo First Blood Part 2. He also did Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend.
Yes, where they found a little baby brontosaurus. It was pretty good.
Explorers, the movie about the kids making the spaceship.
Such a letdown. Such a letdown. The third act of that movie, BLOWS. Oof. And could not get behind a young Ethan Hawke. What a whiny little Weinstein. Blech.
He also did 1985 Legend with Tom Cruise.
Great, underrated movie.
Yeah. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Tim Curry.
Oh, yeah, Tim Curry. Yeah, so great. And King Solomon's Mines, the action-adventure movie based off the 1885 novel.
Yes, that was just made to rip off Indiana Jones.
Yes, it was definitely
with Richard Chamberlain.
Cash-in, yeah.
From Shogun.
Yeah. The main song in Rambo First Blood Part 2 is sung by Stallone's brother, singer-songwriter Frank Stallone.
Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful ditty.
I gotta say...
Peace in my life.
I gotta say, you watch this whole movie, you just watch his brother kill a bunch of people, and then this song comes on over the credits, and it's like, I'm sorry, what movie am I watching?
It's not apt.
No.
There's a lot of peace talk.
It's very odd.
Beautiful, beautiful song. It's sung still at most ball games on the 4th of July.
So Rambo First Blood Part 2 opened in a then record 2,074 theaters.
Yeah, they weren't taking anything to chance.
No, it was the first film to be released in over 2,000 theaters in the United States, and it was the #1 film that weekend, grossing just over $20 million.
Yeah, you would think that, Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, but no, it took Rambo Part 2.
It took America.
Well, there also was the explosion of the multiplexes.
Yeah,
in the 80s.
The big 80s.
That made it that there were a lot more theaters available.
Yes.
And there wasn't much independent cinema that was playing in theaters in the 80s either.
No.
It was all pretty much big budget stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it came. These guys came around at just the right time, and everything kind of clicked into place to make this. The hit of the year.
Right. Overall, the film grossed over $150 million in the U.S. and Canada and just under $150 million internationally.
So 300 up close?
Yeah, just over 300. The movie broke various international box office records. In France, the film had a record opening day with almost 270,000 admissions.
Good Lord.
The French really liked watching Stallone kill people.
He's got very good muscles.
Unfortunately, responses from the critics were mixed. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called the film
almost as opportunistic as the congressman it pretends to abhor. In spite of everything it says, it's much less interested in the MII question than it is in finding a topical frame for the kind of action-adventure film in which Mr. Stallone, his torso, and his vacant stare can do what his fans like best, that is, fight, outwit, and kill, usually all by himself. Dozens of far better armed but lesser mortals.
Variety wrote,
The charade on screen, which is not pulled off, is to accept that the underdog Rambo character, albeit with machine gun-wielding help of an attractive Vietnamese girl, can waste hordes of Viet Cong and Red Army contingents en route to hauling POWs to a Thai air base in a smoking Russian chopper with only a facial scar from a branding iron knife point, marring his tough guy figure. You never see him eating in this fantasy as if his body feeds on itself. He never poops either. There's no pooping.
Yeah. However, Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune gave the film 3 stars out of 4 and called it
very good at what it does, but what it does isn't always that good. It takes us back to the image of the yellow peril, to the notion that white is right and other colors are wrong.
Yet he still gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, what the hell, man? What the hell?
It's literally like, this is bad for the country, but go watch it. It's great.
Gene Siskel he thought way too much of himself. He was just, they gave him too much power.
Him and Stallone had
Once they took him off of PBS, man.
Yeah.
Once they syndicated those sons of bitches, they had too much power.
The movie was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Sound Editing. It was also nominated for 8 Razzie Awards, winning for
Worst Picture, Worst Screenplay for Sylvester Stallone and James Cameron, Worst Actor for Sylvester Stallone, and Worst Original Song for Rex Stallone.
Yeah, it was also nominated for like 3 others, but it didn't win them. Julia Nixon actually got nominated twice for the Razzies, and it's like, come on, man.
It's not her fault.
I'm not a big fan of the Razzie Awards. I think they could be funny, but
they used to be funny, but it's
just
like
get mean. Yeah.
Come on. I mean, there's a lot of actors that have sense of humors and have a sense of humor about it, and they'll even go accept their Razzie.
Well, that's it. Sandra Bullock, literally the same day she won an Academy Award, she went and accepted her Razzie. She was like, all right. Like, whatever.
I earned them both.
I believe it was for the same movie. A tie-in video game for Rambo First Blood 2 Part 2 was released for the Sega Master System.
Sega!
The 1986 run-and-gun shooter arcade hit Ikari Warriors was originally intended by its developer SNK to be an official licensed adaptation of Rambo. However, they were initially unable to acquire the rights to the film.
Aww.
This resulted in the game's title being changed to Ikari, referencing part of the film's Japanese title, Rambo Ikari no Dashutsu, meaning Rambo, the Furious Escape.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a great title. After the game made its North American debut at an arcade game expo, they managed to get in touch with Sylvester Stallone about acquiring the rights to the film.
Hello? Hey, you want to put the name on a video game? It sounds pretty good. Okay, no problem.
However, it was too late by that point, as the game had already become popularly known by its Japanese title among arcade players in Japan and North America, leading to the game being officially released as Ikari Warriors in North America.
Hey, what do you mean it's too late? Oh, that's a bummer. I get it, okay. I love you.
Stone was actually friends with SNK's president at the time and actually owned an Ikari Warriors arcade cabinet.
Thanks for the cabinet.
The movie spawned a ton of imitators around the world, including Missing in Action in 1984, the Chuck Norris preemptive cash-in on the POW-MIA crisis.
Let's do what he did. We're going to get him.
It was literally the biggest criticism of that movie was that they knew that that Rambo First Blood Part 2 was coming out, and they just rushed it through and released it.
That's why Chuck Norris
Not a huge fan of Chuck Norris.
No, I don't. I just feel badly for Chuck Norris because it just seems like he's always one step behind all the other action guys, and he just was like, F it, I'll do Walker Texas Ranger. And then finally found a niche that everybody could deal with, and then he
was great in that show. It was fun.
But it was like that show. All of his movies are just, except for Lone Wolf McQuade.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Well, Missing in Action was great because it was his character was Braddock, and my best friend Damien and I, every time we would make fun of each other, it was always calling each other Braddock. I don't know why. Yeah. Strike Commando, an Italian ripoff that came out in 1987.
Yeah.
And Second Blood, a 2016 Kuwaiti action film that literally just completely ripped off a movie 40 years old.
I'd like to know how they explained Second Blood.
I don't know.
First Blood has been... Well, this is the Second Blood.
Second Blood, yeah. The movie is also parodied in a number of films, like UHF in 1989, with Weird Al playing the part of Rambo to save his buddy from rival TV station owners.
Wasn't the buddy played by...
Michael Richards.
Yes.
Spadowski.
Hey, Jerry.
Stewie Spadowski. Stallone actually initially agreed to make a cameo appearance in the sequence, but ultimately declined.
In UHF?
Yeah.
Oh, man, see, that would have been awesome. It was showed they had a sense of humor about himself, but tiny little,
Yeah.
tiny little man. Big old ego.
It would have been great.
I think he missed out on a lot of stuff by being...
Kind of full of himself.
Yeah. And I really like Stallone. Look, he was a huge part of my youth growing up, and as stupid, crazy, and dumb as his movies are, I still love him. And
I still think of him very positively.
Yeah.
Like, he's still fun to watch, and I mean, whenever he pops up and stuff, I'm like, hey.
I haven't seen him in anything in a while.
The last thing that I saw him in was that little cameo in the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Oh, which was great.
Which was, I mean, it wasn't a lot.
No, but it was fun.
But that movie he did where he had to escape from the prison, I don't remember. I think it might have been called Escape from Prison or something. But
yeah, there's a few of those.
I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was entertaining.
It was fun. It's just he's got that problem too, where it's like, dude, you're gonna get old, bud.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to stop with the surgery and with the human growth hormone and all this stuff because you're just looking like a monster.
Yeah.
You don't look good, buddy.
Yeah.
You don't. You did. You were one of the most beautiful men ever to cross the screen with your tiny little body. But now, time to let it go, bud.
Can't put that genie back in the bottle.
Just get old.
Yeah. Another parody was Hot Shots Part 2, which had Richard Crenna actually reprising his role of Colonel Troutman.
There's a guy who had a good sense of humor about himself.
Yes. A novelization of the film was written by David Morrell, who actually wrote the 1972 novel that First Blood was based on.
Full circle.
Yeah. Take it all
Circle
back.
of life in Hollywood.
And, of course, the Rambo franchise continued because the movie made so much money with Rambo 3 in 1988, and then 20 years later with the eponymous Rambo, and then Rambo Last Blood in 2019.
Okay, now like I said, like Rambo 2 isn't a fantastical 100% propaganda movie. It was wish fulfillment.
It grows into that. Yeah.
And then it turns into just a kill fest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is the bridge between a grounded, great movie about, and honestly, First Blood is a character study about prejudice
and a veteran. Yeah.
a veteran dealing with PTSD.
Yeah.
Dealing with the loss of all of his brothers, who's been pushed around too much, and it is him losing it after being pushed too hard.
Yeah.
And the sheriff, just wanting to protect his town, sees this guy as like a hippie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a good character study of both characters, and the way it escalates seems real. And even though he puts all the traps and the stuff out there, it doesn't seem outlandish or crazy. And it culminates in a really great scene of him just talking about how his friend and he were going to, like, I always make fun of it with, it's my go-to line, good funny spooky things. But it's that scene is really deep, He's talking about his buddy they were going to drive around in his convertible and his legs were all blown apart. And it was really the first time we really got kind of that real visceral feeling of Vietnam, as people who, tangentially, I'm not saying that this conveyed any sort of the real horrors that these people went through who served in Vietnam, but we were starting to get a real picture of what the truth was for some of those, right? And I think this kind of started off with good intentions, but turned into propaganda, which then when we get to 3 in Afghanistan, and now it's not even a proxy war with the Russians. Now we're just 100% at war with the Russians. And he pretty much solidified himself as the American proxy versus the Russian proxy, whether it's, Rocky IV or Rambo 3, he was fighting the Russians for us and winning. And that was his job in the 80s. Be as buff as you can and be our wish fulfillment guy. And he did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
And rah-rah Reagan. And there we go. But the first movie's great, and the second movie is good.
Yeah, it's not. It's fun. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not terrible. I mean, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like you see that moment in the movie when he gets in that helicopter and it's just like, I'm killing everything.
Yeah, and these are also really good time capsule movies of the era.
Yeah.
And how it's interesting to see how through cinema America kind of deals with its wounds. You know, the first Vietnam movie was Green Berets with John Wayne trying to
Which was a
redefine,
propaganda movie.
100%, trying to propaganda, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And then we had Apocalypse Now, which still, because it was based on Heart of Darkness,
Right.
And it had its own theme. It had the horrors of Vietnam, but it was told in a way that was very stylized.
Yeah.
And seemed like its own nightmare
Right.
version of what it was. And, then we have the answer to that, which is like, well, let's retell the story and let's make it so we win.
Yeah. Which is the really interesting part about First Blood was that it was based on a novel that came out in 1972.
Right.
And this stuff has been covered extensively with books since the war started.
Yeah, and it wasn't him against the Viet Cong. It was him against a bunch of small-minded sheriffs and deputies.
It was an allegory for them coming home and the world being very different
and attacking him
and being hated, like for everything out of their control.
And even some of the deputies are like, they were going too far on this.
Yeah,
and once they find out he was this war hero, and it's just a great movie. And I'm excited to do that. But it didn't. The reason why we started with 2 was because it was the bridge to propaganda, which this month is pretty much all about.
Yes.
Rah-rah 80s Reagan propaganda films. And they serve their purpose. But unfortunately, I think their purpose was, to get kids into the military.
And to get people to love them guns.
Oh, yeah. And it did. It did. 100%. I mean, it's part of our gun culture. These revenge films that I think the Rambo franchise spawned a lot of them. Yeah, there was Death Wish and there was a lot of other revenge movies that came out, but there were these gleeful revenge movies where, like, Death Wish was a revenge fantasy, but it was gritty still.
Yeah.
But these were like a gleeful celebration of revenge. Yes, we're finally getting back at these Viet Cong animals that took our guys and these Russian, heartless, godless Russians.
It's trying really hard to put purpose into a war that had none.
Exactly.
And it won. I mean, it won. Like they did it with all this stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're out of time, so that's all we got. We'll be back. We got 5 weeks this month.
Yes, we do.
You got 4 awesome America F yeah movies.
Yeah, we do.
We're also gonna have Top Gun and Rocky 4 and Red Dawn.
Avenge me, boys! Avenge me!
Excited for all 3 of these movies. I've not seen any of them in a long time. So
this is a great lineup for your July 4th, just to put in the background if you're having parties or people over. You can't go wrong with these flicks. We'll be back next week with some more goody goods. Welcome to the Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about
Rambo First Blood Part 2. Rambo, it's the full title.
Okay,
Rambo First Blood Part
2. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. The Odd Couple, already in progress.